got a haircut yesterday over here in Bali again. Not bad, right?
You know what? You look so much better.
I do, don't I? I look amazing.
Way better than you were before.
But what was interesting and what I really liked was when I went into the barbershop, it was the team that were there were at the free event that I did a couple of weeks before. And when I was looking around, they were using the techniques that I was showing them. And I actually got a few videos of like one of the guys was doing like a mid-length haircut and he had it sectioned the way I sectioned it. He was cutting it the way I was cutting it. And one of his colleagues pointed over at him and he said, look, that's what you taught him. Like now he's using it. We've been using that technique. And I gave them a link to the hair index to sign in and use more. I was like, Leigh, my business partner Leigh, he's much better at the longer hair stuff than me. If you want to do some more like surfery kind of like longer mid-length haircuts, that's where to go to the hair index and you'll find it all there. There's multiple ways to do things. I was like, that's just one technique for one result. Like you're going to get a lot more out of it if you watch the other things. And then, you know, you're not even bringing the different tools into it as well. Like, you know, I didn't have a razor with me. I wish I had a razor with me. Because I feel like they'd really benefit from that over here. So when I come back to Australia, I might try and actually get a few razors and bring them over and just go and do a haircut for them down here in Uluwatu and show them how to do it. But I just thought that was a nice place to start because I would love to speak about action and inaction today. And these guys, right, like people who, this is another great quote that I've been sitting with this week. People who pay attention. People who pay attention. And these guys didn't pay for the free training, but they're using the stuff. But they did pay with their time and they understand that they probably couldn't pay for it if they wanted to. Which is sad in one sense. But when they did get the opportunity, you know, when God presented them with the opportunity, the hair gods, then they took it and they're putting it into action. They're using it. I just thought it was beautiful. That's a nice way to start.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you think there's something in there about those who can't pay? They take a lot of action too, like, and not in a sense of like can't pay because they're scared, but can't pay because they literally can't pay. Like they just do not make enough money, and that's those people. They're not. If they could pay, they would. And I think there's a difference there between like Western culture, we're a little bit more privileged. We don't pay because, or certain people don't pay because they're scared, not because they can't. Some people will give the jargon of like, oh, I can't afford it, but what you really mean is you're scared.
Well, people will always find money for the things that they want, but not for the things that they need. And a lot of the time, people will say that they can't afford something, but yet that's just a great excuse because they know that that's a way to get out of it. That's such a lazy answer. You know, that's such a lazy answer. There's so many things in my life that I've invested in that I couldn't afford. But I didn't say I can't afford this, because what does that do? Boom, puts the line in the sand. It stops all the creativity. It stops us thinking. It's the lazy response. It's the lazy answer. The real answer is, how can I? Like, how can I afford this?
Or even just going straight to, I can. You know, I'm being very careful. I'm really digging into this whole language thing this year and being really careful with it. And, you know, even how can I, depending on the tone that you put it out into the world, can also sound, the universe can also cut you off. Sometimes it's just more powerful. These people just go straight to, I can afford this. And then you'll find a way to do it. And what does some of our business coaches tell us? They're like, you know, if you can't find 10 grand, you're not doing it very well. And what they mean by that is, like, if your business isn't making a certain amount and you can't get resourceful and find the extra, then, you know, there's work to do. Like, most people can do it. And that, there's so many lessons in that, just in life, about getting resourceful to find your first 3, 5, 10K to put yourself ahead in life. Like, that's life changing. Once you do that once, you're going to want to do that many, many, many times in your life.
But what are we making normal, right? Like, that's another side of things. I remember when I joined the Kerwin race base, Kerwin was saying, if you can't find 50 grand, you shouldn't be in business. And I paid 50 grand. Like, I sent two $25,000 bank transfers within a month. Like, and I had 5 or 6 grand to my name at the time. But I found a way to make it work. Like, I remember him saying that, and it was, you know, pretty early on when we started Area Academy and, you know, our first business. And I realized early, I was like, I can just keep going here and trying to figure some shit out, or I can, you know, cut the check for speed, figure some, like, get some people who have done this before to guide me to the place that I want to go quicker. And all I got to do in the meantime is get resourceful. I understood that there was a lesson in the resourcefulness. And it was probably still one of the biggest lessons that I have learned from all of the coaching that I've ever got. Because what that did for me, investing that type of money, what that did for me was it made that normal. So from there, if I invested 50 grand in a coach, of course I'm showing up on social media every day. Of course I'm doing all of the things that I need to do for my business on a daily basis. Of course I am identifying and seeing myself as the type of person who makes big transactions. So when I went from the 50k transaction, the new normal now for customer transactions was like $1,000 to $5,000 a customer for us, a client for us, rather than, you know, playing in the small realms of like $50, $60 for a haircut. Like, it's a different, like, it leveled me up, like it expanded me. And, you know, we haven't really touched on this much before in the past, and it's been something that I've wanted to share before on posts, but I made the post and then I was like, nah, not right now. It's just not the time. But now might be the time when it comes to like what we're doing currently. But the post that I made once was, why do our courses cost what they cost? Like, when we were doing market research at the very beginning of Area Academy and we were looking around at what everyone else was charging, I feel like that was one of the biggest conversations that we actually had. We were stuck on that for a little while. Not stuck on it, but just like unsure as to like, where do we place ourselves in the market? And eventually it came to the conclusion of, all right, let's just go in and double what everyone else is charging or triple what everyone else is charging. And highly qualify the audience, provide a much more tailored experience for people and give them real tangible value beyond the course material, but in the price point as well. People who pay attention. $3,000 gets people listening and gets them writing notes. I've seen a dramatic difference in the attendees' results from our courses based on the price that they pay. Like, we could do a free course. We could, like I was saying on one of my posts, I'm going to go on a rampage here. Like I was saying on one of my posts, the one about the Bali barbers, actually, I did that session for free, and the attention that they were paying was insane. And we've done similar things in Australia at Hair Festival, giving stuff away for free, essentially, giving information away for free that could change someone's life, change someone's career, but they don't see it as that because they haven't paid for it. So they just think, well, it can't be worth much because it's free. It's worth what you make it worth. Like, you know, the internet right now, you can learn anything that you want on the internet. I was watching a story from a guy last night that I know who's over here in Bali, and he was saying, education is free. Go and look up fucking Alex Hormozy, look up any of our stuff, all these podcasts. We're giving you the answers. What you need to pay for, though, is the accountability and the implementation to actually have a structure and how to then take all of the stuff that's up here and messy and put it into a linear structure and process based on experiences that people have had, mistakes that they've made, fuck-ups that they've made, failures that they've made. And I wrote this down earlier on the call, and I had a bit of... we were on a call earlier this morning with our coach. And we were on a call yesterday with a young kid who's starting with us in the Accelerated Mentorship Program next week. And the biggest fuck-up that people make that people make is not being willing to fuck up. Like the inaction. That is guaranteed to fuck you up. And sorry for all the language. I'm trying my best not to swear as much this year as well, taking inspiration from you, Leigh. But I think that is necessary in this case.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. And the inaction comes from fear. A lot of the time it's the fear of what if, and what if it all goes wrong, and you know, if you never try, you're never going to know, right? And like what we always speak about, you know, there's layers of evidence that you need to build in your life, not just for other people, but like for yourself. There's certain like trials and tribulations that you got to put yourself through to actually build a level of evidence in your own nervous system that you can do hard things, and not everything is going to go wrong when there's a risk on the line, you know. And there's always risk on the line. People say this to me all the time. Oh yeah, but it's risky. It's like, yeah, but there's reward on the other side too. Risky. It's risky doing it, and it's risky not doing it. Like, choose your risk. But unless what's more risky, but unless you start to choose the path, the risky path that on the other side of it has the potential to transform your life and your career, you're actually never going to know, and you're never going to start to build layers of evidence and feedback for yourself to work out what works for me, what doesn't. Do I need this idea? Do I need that idea? If you're just bobbing along and like guessing, well, I've said it a million times on this podcast, life is too short to keep guessing. I don't think we were put here to guess. I think that's what the first man was here to do, was to guess. And the next one would taught the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and growth was inevitable. And because we just don't need to guess. But because life is short, but the caveat also is life is long if you live it well, if you do these things with it. Because what you find is, once you start getting a bit more clever with the risk that you take, you can actually do things with speed and leverage. So that there's a lot of fear tied to the risk, which is obvious. Risk is oftentimes tied to negative. But again, like you say, which one outweighs the other? You just got to think about that one. And Stephen Bartlett explained it beautifully. I haven't really heard anyone else say it the way he did, but you know, his biggest fear is like the certain misery of doing things. You know, it's like somebody would say, well, I'm uncertain. The person who just keeps asking for more information. Oh, I won't regret it, will I? Oh, what's entailed? Oh, so what am I going to get? Oh, this, what? It's like that person is so uncertain. They can't handle a lot of uncertainty because they probably haven't dove into it before. That to them seems risky, but it's also risky to stay exactly where you are and have the certainty that they are more used to in their misery. Now that terrifies me, and I'm sure it terrifies you as well. The certain misery of things terrifies me. And so I would rather put myself into uncertain territory, take some calculated risk, because I know that the good and the bad is at reach at all times. Success and failure is at reach at all times. So I want to see if there's more lessons and more levels of evidence that I can build on the other side of risk.
Yeah. I think patterns aren't going to break themselves. That's a big thing, you know. Patterns aren't going to break themselves. Like, we need to break the patterns. And first and foremost, we need to be aware. I think the gateway to any change is awareness. Like, you need to be able to see it. Like, you can't change something that you can't see. Like, you can't intervene with the world that you can't see. So, like, yes, it's an evidence thing. Yes, it's a belief thing. But first and foremost, we need to be able to see that, oh, there's a pattern here. And if I don't break the pattern, a lot of the time you got two options. When you come face to face with awareness and with your patterns, you've got two options. You go ahead and you take the path of uncertainty, and you do something that feels a little bit scary, but ultimately has a greater reward. Or you just choose to bury your head in the sand, be an ostrich, and hope that when you take your head back out of the sand that things will be different and you didn't see what you just saw. And that doesn't get people to the place of joy, contentment, fulfillment. You know, why would, look, a lot of it is to do with conditioning. We're conditioned to have mediocre lives. Like, we're conditioned into mediocrity by the system. That is just the way that the world has been kind of set up, because it's one big business. So recognizing that in the first place is one of the first steps to breaking patterns, because you realize that none of your beliefs are actually yours, that somebody else has given them to you and conditioned them into you. And myself, I'm also very, you know, I guess, for lack of a better word, guilty of this. But, you know, in order to instill new beliefs, we need a level of evidence to prove those beliefs to be true. And sometimes we need to just see something in order to believe it. But the worst thing that somebody can do, in my opinion, is see something, believe it, and not make any changes, regardless of how scary it is. Because that in itself is a way to just waste life. And sometimes, in order to make the change, we need to connect it to an outcome. We need to connect it to an outcome. And one thing I said the other day, and fuck it, I'm going to say it because it's too powerful not to say it. But I want to just put a disclaimer in first. I don't have kids yet, so don't be Karen and don't be the person who comes to me and says, oh, you don't have kids, you can't say that, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I have a pair of eyes and I can see what's fucking going on, and I'm getting myself ready for the day that I do have kids. But we were chatting to one of the guys in our coaching group, and we were doing a planning session with him, and we were connecting everything that he's doing in his business to an outcome. And the outcome was that he was going to spend more time with his kids, with his family. And I was saying most people, well, that's actually a big statement. I wouldn't say most. I would say some barbers care more about their clients than they do than their kids. And they will never say that. They will never ever admit that or say that. But their patterns and their conditioning and their behavior shows it. And on an unconscious and on a subconscious level, take barbering out of it, most parents who are married to their jobs care more about the money in their jobs than they do about their kids. And I know they're saying that they're doing it for the money and for their kids, but their kids don't understand that. They don't know. They don't understand it. They don't have the logic to figure that out. Like, that, they just think, oh, well, why does dad or why does this person, like, why do they care more about cutting people's hair than they do about me? So one of the biggest steps for me when it came to making change in my life and setting myself up for the future and doing this long before I have kids is preempting the certain misery. And the worst time to make a change, we said this to our coaching group yesterday, the worst time to try and feed yourself is when you're already hungry. The worst time to make a change is when you're in the pits, when you're down in the fucking rabbit hole of like misery and you can't find a way out. You can't figure out how to get out of there, because then everything is being approached from a place of scarcity. rather than a place of abundance. And we met this young kid yesterday who's joining us next week, and he had a lot of money saved up in the bank. For his age, he had a lot of money saved up in the bank. I never saw that kind of money when I was his age. And he's figuring out, okay, well, how do I multiply this? How do I take this now and multiply it and really set myself up? Rather than, oh, I just got to hold on to it with all my life and hope that this is going to last me, because that's what most people do. So patterns aren't going to break themselves, but the first step is seeing the pattern, being aware of it. And then once we have that awareness, every action that we don't take is costing us more than the action that we do. You know, like the cost of inaction is massive. And, you know, we often say it, especially for certain investments that we make in life, it costs more not to do it than it does to actually do the thing.
I'll even bring up a kind of scenario for me. Something that comes to mind that we've been talking about lately is, you know, personal brand. And one of my, on reflection, one of my regrets over the years is not pushing my personal brand harder. Now, the cost of inaction there, where did my inaction come from? The voice of others. I was listening to others too much. And that then led to infrequency, which was a form of inaction. And the cost of that now is that it's harder to build. At that time, I didn't take enough action because I had bad counsel. And now, downstream, it's harder. Everything's just harder. Regardless of how much knowledge you have, regardless of how good you are at the thing, regardless of whatever you've done, it's just hard. Everything's just harder. And that for me was a cost of inaction on doing that. And that was free. I didn't even need to pay for that. And that's what pisses me off the most. I'm like, damn it, that thing was free. I could have been posting 5 to 7 times a day for nothing and set myself up so much in the future. So that was the cost of inaction on something that was free. You know, and think of in terms of mentorship education, like the stuff you can pay for is actually priceless, like just priceless. You know, we're learning that more and more now. I think we'll probably have a coach forevermore now in whatever capacity that looks like or whatever format that looks like, because there's just always something to learn, always. And you can never have eyes. You know, I don't think there's enough. Well, I think there's levels to awareness. I don't think I have eyes in all corners of my own life as well as someone else can observe my life. And I think that's most people. It's very hard to observe all corners of your life with open eyes and non-judgment. Very hard to do. You might have your eyes open in 2 corners. You'd be like, yeah, okay, yeah, got these. But there's probably corners that you can't as well as someone else could. They just take a bird's eye view, look over the picture of your life and go, you're not paying much attention to that corner. And you're like, shit, yeah. Or, that's creeping back in. There's always something to be learned from bird's eye view. And so the kind of the story in that, I think is seek good counsel as well. You know, be careful who you take your advice from, because I didn't seek, but I probably thought it was good counsel back in the day. Turns out it wasn't. And it's now costing, that cost of inaction is now, it's not doing me any favors now.
Well, that's huge, because, you know, if you're taking advice from people who still haven't come to that door of awareness and they're stuck in their patterns, you're taking advice from their patterns and their conditioning. It's not actually an open, like, awareness that they can see everything and they can overview everything, because they haven't walked through that door yet. It's not their fault. But it's I love drawing analogies to it, and, you know, people can get a little bit scared sometimes when it comes to business, especially around, like, getting help, because because we're in business, we should know about business and we should know these things. And shame actually stops a lot of people from taking action because they're afraid of like not knowing the thing. And that is actually another sure way to fuck yourself up. But our lives today are a direct reflection of all of the decisions that we've made 3 to 5 years ago. You know, one thing I've been saying the last couple of days to our coaching clients, but also to Hannah, and you know, we've had this conversation between ourselves, but we can't reap what we don't sow. Like, speaking into the personal brand piece there, like when I started doing my personal brand, I didn't know where it was going to end up, but I knew that if I didn't do it, it would cost me more than me doing it. Like, that's the beauty of that journey, is like you kind of just take off on this kind of hero's adventure and this hero's journey. You don't really know where exactly it's going to land, but staying in bloody Hobbiton, wherever Frodo started his journey, staying there would have guaranteed him like a boring ass life. He would have never seen all of the things that he's seen. But it ended up, my personal brand journey ended up getting me permanent residency in Australia. And I didn't know that was going to be the thing that got it for me, but it was. It was my personal brand that got it for me. But it also got me out of the barbershop. It also got me into a position now where I make a hell of a lot more impact in the world and a hell of a lot more money for it, and help other people do the same. But it's a direct reflection of the decisions that I made 3 to 5 years ago. And my life is always going to be based on that premise and that principle. Like, the work that I'm doing today is setting me up for 3 to 5 years time. Going back to the kids thing, I would like to have kids in 3 to 5 years time. So the work that I'm doing today is setting me up for then. We can't reap what we don't sow. If we're not planting seeds, we can't harvest any crops, you know. And the most organic and the best foods and the most nutritionally complete foods take a little bit longer to grow, and there's more effort in the growth of them as well, and like the nurturing of them. So like I was saying earlier, the worst thing that we can do is try and plant these seeds and harvest these crops when we're already hungry. You know, we need to look ahead. We need to look into the future, 3 to 5 years from now. And the decisions that I'm making right now, today, how are they serving my future? Not just how is it serving next week, the way that we've been conditioned to believe that that's the case. How is it serving next week? Can I afford the fucking shoes? Can I afford the clothes? Can I afford going out to the club? Can I afford the bag of cocaine? Like, put all that shit to the side. Like, forget about it. What are your kids going to think, you know? And that whole kids situation was followed up with a really massive thing. If you're not doing it for yourself, do it for them. Do it to break the patterns and the generations for the future.
Yeah. Because all of that stuff, you know, is like deforming our existence, right? Like a lot of that is distraction. And I love where you were going with the awareness piece. Like, I've really been thinking a lot about awareness lately and what it even is. And, you know, it's the noticing. It's the noticing of the moments and the noticing of your behaviors, and that whole thing of like setting yourself up for 3 to 5 years ahead, what that's going to look like. I like to think about like, what have the previous 3 to 5 years, what were the decisions that I made? How has that impacted me in the present? And then what can I do to adjust that? What do I like that I can keep? Or what can I do to adjust the things that are then going to affect the next 3 to 5 years? I love that scale of looking at that. And that's almost awareness blown up on a big scale. You know, moment to moment. I love how Zach Bush explains it. He says, awareness is the space between your words. He was like, realizing that there's infinite space between your words will change your worldview. And the awareness lays in the infinite space between your words. And in the space, what you can do is notice and remember. And I just love thinking about awareness like that, remembering who am I. He calls like awareness in these calm states, like embryonic states, like, you know, the most aware our body ever was in an embryonic state when we were forming, and remembering how to be, our genetic code was remembering how to put a human body together. Then it's like almost a point of that, of remembering, okay, what was it like for that version of me before my very first word started to deform the reality that I have. So it's really that, and that's a hard one for a lot of people to grasp. And the reason these things exist, like you say, like the clothes and the bags of Coke and the this and that and the bag and the shoes and the haircuts and the this, is a beautiful distraction from the remembering and the noticing. And this, what I realized with myself is, it's very hard to still be the person you are when you do remember and you do notice. Very, very hard. I think that I'm going to go as far as saying, I think your spiritual awakening, this is going to get a bit woo-woo now, but your awakening moment is your awareness moment. It's the moment you become aware. It's the moment you notice the gaps between your words. It's the moment you start to remember. And that there is what will set you free. And that there is what helps you realize, oh, this is a made up game that I'm playing right here. Everything is made up, so nobody really knows what on earth is going on. So to think that you've got it right is quite audacious, because it's just made up. It's a game with the rules that will never stop changing. So that, for me, alleviates a lot of the fear and the risk. It's like, oh, okay, it's always going to move and change. Great. Let's keep playing. And let's be aware of what were the decisions that I made from 3 to 5 years. How's that affected me now? And how can I mitigate those moving forward? It's such a beautiful way to live life. And that's what, for me, makes life exciting. Like, you know, people can say, oh, yeah, nah, I just want to crack on and plod along and do whatever. It's like, yeah, ignorance is bliss, but ignorance is also certain misery sometimes. Like, really, deep down, is you okay with this? Like, you're totally fine with it. And without a level of awareness, that's interesting. And I was at the supermarket last night and just picking up a few things for today, and I was looking around at some of the people working in there, and I just look at them and I think, is this it for you? Like, I was just trying to, like, I was having a conversation with myself and then telepathically, like, is this it for you? But then without judgment though, I was not judging it. I was not saying, is this it for you, with judgment. I was just looking and thinking, I wonder what their decisions were to get them to this point. And are they okay with it? And what does this point right here serve for the next 3 to 5 years for them? Because I think about this right now. If I never had to worry about money again, would I just, or I was just content with just doing whatever, would I just work at a supermarket and get a little bit of money every week and just live a cozy little life? Like, that's also a decision, as long as you're happy with it. But the reason we talk about the things that we talk about is most people aren't happy with their situation. And one of the only things that's ever going to help you to get out of your situation is the awareness of what got you into your situation. So, yeah, just to riff on that a bit more, like, I love it. And without awareness, I don't know if you're going to take action, because the nervous system and the brain says, well, why should I? Because you have no awareness of what even happened to you. And if you have no filter of working out whether you're living in joy or not, then who knows? You could stay where you are forever. And again, ignorance is bliss, but is it certain misery? Because I love the deathbed analogy, you know? Sorry to take it dark, but like, we all have the same we all have the same life sentence. Like, we're all going in the same direction. And put yourself at the end, look back and think, was that how I wanted to do it? Was that cool? Because that's the day of reckoning, right? It's that moment where you get to look, that flashback, that cinema reel of your whole life and go, oh, damn, what did I do? Or, brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's like, are you just going to live your life watching everybody else's lives around you, like a movie, you know? And I actually think movies are kind of bad for people because it gives people dopamine hits, like to think that that's what they're doing with their own lives, but they disassociate then, you know, it's not association. But, you know, with awareness, like what to add to what you were saying there, with new awareness comes new evidence. And when the new evidence comes, that's when we either have the decision to either take action upon the evidence or to stay where we're at. And some people just need, like, eventually, like, the strategic interventions will keep showing up and things will keep happening until you take the action. Like we always say, you're going to pay either way. You're going to pay with your money or you're going to pay with your time. You're going to get there either way. Because once you have the notification or the bit of awareness comes up, it's inevitable that one time in your life you're going to take that action. But sometimes it just has to get to a point of extreme pain. Like, how painful does it have to become? How hungry do you have to get before you start planting the seeds in your farm? And the smart people, the proactive people, not the reactive people, the proactive people will start planting the seeds early and watch them grow later. And then, you know, we're so young right now, like, you know, I reckon most of the generations that have passed before us get to a certain point and see somebody at like 40, 50, all of a sudden just living this really, like, you know, expansive life. And they just don't understand it, so they hate it. And then that's why the conditioning of people who have money is a bad thing. Oh, they must be drug dealers. Oh, they must be this, or they must be doing something bad, or they're not good people. Because they just don't understand how they've done that and planted the seeds early and put the work in. Like, sometimes you got to just fucking put the work in too, like, for a couple of years, get your head down. And one good year of your life can get you out of a situation and into a much more expansive life.
Ty Lopez says a great one on that, like the mentality of people. One of the downfalls of a lot of people is they live by their convictions, not their thesis. So he says, I have lots of thesis around things. He was like, I have theories for everything. It was like, what theories mean is they could be bent and changed. Whereas a conviction is like, you just think you're right. And that is one of the most crippling things for a human, is to live via their convictions. And that, I think, has been passed. We see this a lot. You know, we've been talking a lot about God lately and religion, but there's a lot of conviction language around those topics. And that is the downfall for a lot of people. Once you get into a dogma, into a conviction, it's dangerous. And that I think can hold a lot of people back as well. Like you say, like with all like online courses, what we do with coaching, blah blah blah. Some people will be like, snake oil. Like, yeah, what do they know? Is that your thesis or is that your conviction? If that's your conviction, you're already fucked. Like, you're already screwed. If that's how you walk the world, because to just be completely in conviction is a lack of curiosity. I'm too curious. I'm curious about different things. I buy shit courses sometimes. I'll pay a couple $100 just to buy a shit thing, just because I'm curious. I'm like, is there anything here? But because I don't live by my convictions. Whereas, you know, when you've got a thesis around things, when you've got a theory, that's the best way to live, because it's open to curiosity and open to be changed. And I think that's one of the gifts to the world, is how can we constantly adjust our worldview to help next generations? Because nothing's ever stayed the same. You know, the planet doesn't even have conviction. It's always changing. Like, everything changes. We have seasons, we have new growth, there's different things, that species that come about, and all these random things. It's just, we go through these long weather cycles, like, you know, 100, 200 year weather cycles. Like, there's just always changed. It's not really convicted on anything. So, yeah, I really think it's important not to get too dogmatic on your beliefs as well, because that will further induce inaction. Like, that's a recipe to not take action and live a life of a common life or a mediocre life. You know, that might not bring much joy.
The hair industry is an interesting space for like human observation and behavior, because especially in the education side of it, I feel like there's not a lot of people who can go into it with openness. And that's just down to conditioning too. It's not because they're not an open person. It's got nothing to do with them as a person. But quite often we're reflected and shown that in order to do this thing and in order to teach this thing, you have to know what's right and what's wrong. And, you know, hair educators will go into it with a very dogmatic approach, being like, this is the way to do it and there is no other way. This is the way. And the reason that they're going about it in that way, in my opinion, this is just my theory, this is just my thesis, is because of the overall conditioning of the hair industry. This wouldn't happen in a lot of other places. All these business courses that I've been on outside of the hair industry, nobody behaves in that way. Everyone's open to like, oh, interesting, that's an interesting way to look at that. And they'll take things from everyone and implement it in their own lives. Whereas in the hair industry, people are so focused on being right because they hate being wrong, because of where hair is placed in society. You know, we're seen as a lower rung on the ladder. People only get into hair because they can't do anything else. So what do hairdressers do? They get good at it and then spend the rest of their life proving that they're good at it. So then they turn something which is seemingly simple into something super complicated and make it dogmatic in order to pump up their own self-importance, which actually is doing the people that they're teaching an injustice. Like, the best thing a teacher can do is be a student in the environment. And, you know, education is a conversation. It's two ways. It's not just one person speaking at another person. And it's just mad.
I heard a great definition of listening as well, to expand our understanding of listening. You know, I love the way that Peter Crone explains to be a great listener. You know, it's such a skill. And, you know, to be a great listener is, you know, in his words, is to hear and to listen, and just to listen, just to hear, not react, not respond. You know, and you can listen to respond, not react. Most people sit in a reactive space. But something I heard recently as well, to deepen that, is like, a great listener listens to hear with the openness to be changed by what they hear. Now that shows that you live in a place of curiosity and humility and non-conviction. You know, I think when it comes to a skill set, it pays to have conviction in what you're doing. It's like, I've chosen to do this. This is the way I've chosen to do it. I have conviction in that. But then the whole thing's a theory. Like, and that's the difference between what we do. We take people back to the remembering state almost. We take them back to like the embryonic state of like, here are all the pieces that it took to create this theory. Here's what they are. Here's how they work and why they work. You go ahead and be the creator of your own reality. Not, here's the pieces and this is exactly what you do with them. And this is the only thing you can do with them. It's like, no. Let's reduce it back down. Because again, all right, I like to think of all the things I do in my life. Is this the best thing we could do for humanity? Like, just teaching people certain dogmatic, restricted, convicted things is not always the best thing you could do to them, because it comes with a bunch of bias. Now, if they've asked you, Owen, how do you do that exact haircut? That's a different thing, because they just want one specific thing. But if we're talking about the theory of hair, the pieces of hair, then it can't ever be that. And I think we do the most justice to people moving forward we take all of our bias out of it. We take all of our convictions out of it. We break it back down to the embryonic state of remembering who the hell you are, what the hell this is, and we give you all the pieces, what they are, how they work, why they work, some scenarios of when you can use them. But ultimately, it's up to you to go and create your own reality with that. And that's why, and you can attest this, I say in every single class, once you learn what we show you, there won't be a haircut you can't do. The switched on person, the curious person will go, I get where you're going with this. I get what you mean. You're unlocking the foundation of the understanding. See, another hair educator might go, well, this is one haircut. That's not unlocking the possibilities. That's just showing you one thing. Now, again, if you just want that acute understanding, that's fine. But it doesn't help in the broader term of things. And I think that gets lost in our industry because of our convictions and our dogma. And like you said before, I think because of where it's placed in society, hairdressers, to me, for my career, it seemed like we're just clawing our way up. We're trying to claw our way up. So of course we can't be wrong. Of course not. No. We have to be right. We have to claw our way to the top.
Do you know much about, I need to read into it a little bit more, but do you know much about confirmation bias?
No. I haven't studied it a lot.
I'm just wondering, is that what that is? Like, a lot of people are delivering some education from a place of confirmation bias, and take confirmation bias out of it because this might not be what it exactly is, but a lot of people are delivering education to confirm to themselves that I know about the thing rather than to help the person do the thing better for them. Like our delivery, and I was that person at one time, like, because it was like my way of putting up my defenses. If I was in control, then I was safe. It was a way of putting up my defenses. Okay, I'm going to deliver it in this certain way and I'm going to control the situation. Whereas now I have such a broad understanding of the situation and human behavior and psychology and how this is actually translating into business, that we can go into every single 3-day course and be like, this is a new experience and we don't know where it's going to go. And it becomes all about them. So like, it's really difficult right now for us to go on a stage and present a haircut, which is going to be interesting this year because we're doing a few things like that. But maybe that's what we speak to. It's, that is what we go on there and do. We speak to that thing. It is really difficult for us to do this because it isn't about us anymore. And when we switched it to that mindset, that's when we actually have the best experience as well, because we're now learning. We're part of the group when that is the case.
And I think that's where, our education is so mind expanding. It is, I'm going to use the word like mind blowing, not because it's like this super fantastic thing. It is, by the way, but mind blowing in a sense of it blows like holes in people's convictions, and it breaks it back down to, and I think that's why, it's expansive in the sense of like, it challenges the way people think about even what they're doing. Because someone will say to me, oh, how do you do this haircut? And I'll be like, well, no, let's go back to our pieces. It's more about what pieces or what fundamentals would you use to get that result. If you could think about it like that, that's a better way to do it. Not, oh, how do you do this haircut? There's probably 5 ways you can do that haircut. You see these mullets going on right now. Like, there's 5 different ways you could do that mullet and get the same result. That's, if you can think about it from that sense, I think, it's so much more powerful. So much more powerful.
That's just an approach to life. And if you can take that and you can apply it to business, you can apply it to any area of your life. Like, people get into business and they think it's the same. Well, this is how you run a barbershop, or this is how you be a barber and run a barber business. And that's a very, again, dogmatic approach. Like, there is multiple ways. Once we implant and implement that psychology or that mindset around, like, no, let's just break it down to what this is. And really everything in the world is just a culmination of ideas. And the better we can cultivate ideas and have our minds open to critical thinking, the better everything's going to be. Like, the moment we stop critically thinking and we're caught in our convictions, like you were saying, that is when all creativity stops. So like that's actually an equation. That's actually an equation. We can turn that into an equation.
We can run this one back and get
the creativity. The creativity blocker, we'll call that one. What blocks creativity? You know, when there's a lack of critical thinking and people are stuck in their convictions, boom, creativity stops.
Double roadblock. And one of the things that keeps that whole equation wide open is awareness. You know, without the awareness, it's very hard to get creative. You know, we've done our creative courses. We dig deep into the psychology of what creativity even is. Most people don't even know there's 3 different types of creativity. You know, the whole understanding. I love to go to the absolute, again, the fundamental embryonic stages of these things and work out what on earth they are. You know, most people do confuse artistry and creativity. They do confuse the two. But they're hard to pull off effectively without awareness. And I do it within haircuts now. Like, I'm at a point where I'll think, right, I'm going to do this in the way that I know fundamentally works. And I'm going to look at all the things, the space between my thoughts, the milliseconds, because there's infinite space in those moments. I'm going to use that space to think about how I can do this differently, creatively. Can I change attention? Can I change the way I cut it, slice it, move it, lift it, whatever? Like, that's what becomes fun. And that's why I say to a lot of people, be careful of your dogmas. Because right now, you know, and social media creates dogmas. It creates these conviction mindsets because, you know, right now in barbering, we're seeing this geometric, short, sharp, everything's cut to straight lines and it all has to be even and balanced and equal. It's like, okay, but that's just one way to do it. How do you know that that's the only way? That's the perfectionist version of doing things. And it's only one way of doing it. Like, we're experiencing it now. What was that influenced by? What was the embryonic stage of that? That was influenced by Sassoon. What was Sassoon influenced by? Sassoon was influenced by architecture. What's architecture influenced by? Mathematics. What's mathematics influenced by? The sacred geometry of the planet. Like, it's all influenced from something. We just have to understand that it's so broad. But what we also understand is that certain things also disappear. Right now, the Sassoons movement is struggling because people have realized there's other ways to do things. It's like with men's hair. If you get too stuck in the geometric, sharp, everything's got to be like this, clean, crisp, blah, 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 well, you might be stuck. If you get too stuck there, it might limit you in the future. That is also an inaction. It's an inaction of broadening your scope. Because what if it goes away one day? Because we all know that things change. It's just inevitable. Might not be next week, might not be next year, might be in 5 years, but it could happen. And my question is always why? Like, why is this the way that I'm doing it? And if you can break that down 5 times, then fantastic. But I was watching a really cool reel the other day, or it is an interesting reel. I'm going to name some people here. So if you're listening to this, or if you ever listen to this, you probably won't, but please don't take offense to this. But it was just my curious mind looking at this. So it was Travis Parker and Julius Caesar. They were at some sort of event in America, and Travis asked Julius what's one of the hardest things that you do in hair, or one of the things that you find hard to teach. And he said dry cutting curly hair shapes. And Travis was like, oh, interesting. And Caesar said, yeah, I find it hard. Well, I find that the hardest thing because, you know, you could dry cut it and it looks good, but you still want it to be geometrically sound and like or precise. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, why though? Why? If it looks good, why does it have to then be geometrically precise? The two can coexist, but it doesn't always mean one's going to get the other. Just because it's geometrically precise doesn't always mean that it's going to look beautiful. It's just geometrically precise. And that's where I think a lot of barbers fall short, is they're so focused on getting the thing short, sharp, geometrically precise that they forget about the beauty and the vision of things. and the what if moments and the awareness moments. Not everything has to be like that. And that's the beauty of curly hair, because my understanding of curly hair, I used to be like that. I used to try and cut curly hair all beautifully, perfectly precise. But what I know now is it doesn't live like that. So if it looks great, just dry cut. And if it looks beautiful, why don't you just leave it like that? Why does it have to be geometrically sound? Precise?
Because if it's not right, what is it? If it's not precise, what is it?
Yeah, and
that's where, like, barber schools in general, up to this point, school in general, not just barber schools or hairdressing schools, school in general teaches us right, wrong. There's no like open awareness, and I think that was one thing I wanted to add to the awareness piece there for what you were saying, was just the word before it, open awareness. Because you can have awareness, everyone has awareness, but is it convicted awareness or is it open awareness? And that is something that I have also had to learn, and I've learned a lot from you in the way that we deliver and teach, is like, why does it have to be precise? It doesn't have to be. And it can still be in the realm of right if that is the decision. So that's the difference. It's the decision that you make for it to be precise or not so precise. Because this is the funny thing, right? Like, the trend that's coming through right now is like, you'll see a lot of people like Julius Caesar doing haircuts that are more kind of, and Josh is now changing his kind of style as well when it comes to, shaving someone's head, and like, things aren't in the realm of always being precise, but they still have a certain element of structure to it. So quite often we do these precise haircuts, but we style them in really rough and messy ways so that you can't see the precision. So it's like, well, would you not just cut it in that way so that it adds to the effect that you're trying to create?
There you go. And that's what's lost in, and I think what does it attract? We attract, now this is the psychological side of our industry, we attract perfectionists. We can see that in the hair, where we attract perfectionists. And what is perfectionism? It's a wound. It's a pattern. And not a lot of people will admit that. That was my reckoning. That was my awakening. I realized, holy shit, I'm really good at this thing. Why am I good at this thing? Because I'm a perfectionist. Why am I a perfectionist? Because I have an unhealed wound. That's why I teach the way I do. And like you said, to the point of like, with my own study, duality, I don't tell people not to learn precise. I'm a big advocate for precision. I love precision. Like I said, recovering perfectionist. I love it. But what does it teach you? It teaches you two things. It teaches you, number one, the awareness to start digging of why are you a perfectionist? Because again, your passion can be your downfall. I'm just passionate about getting things so right and so precise. Okay, that could be your downfall. Secondly, it teaches you the opposite. It teaches you the duality. If you listen to the Tao, if you study the Tao Te Ching, you'll learn that there is duality in everything in life. We can't have anything without duality. We don't know the light without the dark. We don't know the happy without the sad. We don't know the beautiful without the ugly. We don't know these things. So being precise teaches you the opposite. That's what I love about it. And it's just so important not to get stuck in one, because it will limit you. Trust me, it will limit you. I've seen enough in the industry, especially when you get to like editorial world, all these different things that you want to do. It doesn't pay to be that person all the time, because they're going to take one look at you and go, one trick pony, cool, see ya. We don't need that, and if we're talking about, look, I'm just going to use one train of thought, just photography while it's on my mind. We're trying to portray real life. We're trying to portray nature and the beauty in nature, and the contrast between hard and soft, and the blending of textures and depth and these things. If everything's precise, you don't get that. So it takes a challenge of our perception to dig into those things, and an awareness and critical thinking and asking why, and realizing that there's duality in all things. And that's what I love the way we teach. People come for the information, but they get it in threefold. They also get the opposite, which is incredible. And that's what I love, how we teach is like, there's duality in everything. I'm going to show you how to do it this way, But at the same time, you get the opposite as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that stems all the way back to the start of the conversation when we spoke into, the biggest fuck up that people can make is not fucking up. Like, and we're taught in school that we not to fuck up. Like, we literally watch people in our classes now fuck something up because we know that helps them more than actually teaching them how to do it really well and in a precise way. Because without knowing what the opposite is, how do you know what the thing that you're trying to achieve is, right, for lack of a better word.
I like to take the negative emotion off, messing up as well. It's like, what can we do to take, because that's tied with negative connotation, right? And we learn that a lot from school. It's like, especially with hair, guys, we're just making it up. Like, you can't really fuck a haircut up. It's impossible. Something that's made up, like you literally made it up, you can't fuck it up. Something that's non-essential to life, you can't mess it up. It's just different to what you thought. So when something's different to what you thought, it means it's feedback to, there's more to learn and I just need to do it differently. Well, that lightens the load. That lightens it.
But isn't it funny in barber school that, like, you'll have certain, we've heard it from many people, but their teachers would give them quite a hard time on, like, getting haircuts right. And isn't that conviction just so interesting to observe as well? Because it's like, where does that come from? It's not like you're reading it out of a hair Bible. Like, there's no one set of rules for, like, how this is done. And the only reason that there is a set of rules or it's put in place is to make money off of it. And once that penny drops, it's like, the people who right now will slate us or say, well, I've had it, I'll put it out there. There's people online sending things to different people that are high up in the industry trying to get us cancelled, who, it's are just trying to, like, protect what it is that they have, rather than have the open awareness to things might eventually change and things might not be the same anymore at a certain point in life. And that is, again, the surest way to keep them stuck, because we always have to be looking at, like, how is the world evolving? How are things changing? If we stay the same and everything else around us keeps moving, we're going to be in the same position. And everything else is going to keep moving. Other industries are moving forward. Like, I don't take any inspiration right now from the hair industry when it comes to, like, the decisions that we make in business, because it doesn't really serve me to do that. It's nice to look at it from a market research standpoint. But I was speaking to somebody yesterday on Instagram, and I was just speaking to him about, like, why is it that he hasn't, like, joined us yet in the accelerated mentorship program, and like he wants to, and he's going to in the next couple of months, but he got stuck in his head thinking that he was too new to the industry. Like, one of the things that was coming up for him was, I don't have enough experience yet, or I'm too new to it, so that's been a roadblock for me. And I was like, my response was, well, stay new, because the old don't seem to be doing it very well, do they? So, like, what I see, like, so what you see as a roadblock, I see as an opportunity. And I think that was a bit of a penny drop moment as well, because if we keep doing it the same way, so what is that telling himself? Oh, I have to be ready, or I have to be at a certain point before I can take action. That's just another thing set up by the people to protect themselves. Or you have to have an educator certificate. Or you have to be qualified in order to do this, and you have to be qualified in order to do that. Some people spend their whole lives waiting to be qualified, or waiting for the timing to be right for something. And they get to the end of their life and they have, what do you want? Like, a bunch of certificates on the wall, or a joyful life? Like, and even the qualifications are a roadblock, That's another restriction. That's another box you're putting yourself in. I was watching this thing the other day, it was funny, and they were nicknaming, somebody in the program was nicknamed Square. And it took me a while to figure it out. But because, like, they put themselves in a box, it was like a hippie program, and then, like, the person that they were calling a square was, like, somebody who was in, like, the military, like, going to school in the military. Like, you know, the way they just put you in that like system. It's like, all right, square. And I was like, why are they calling it square? It's like, well, interesting, because they're in a box.
My life advice to people right now is like, yeah, just become a mad scientist. Just experiment, try some stuff. Like, try as much as you can. Try it. You know, don't even worry. Like, don't worry where you are, where you're at. You know, yeah, sometimes you might need a bit of experience to have context. Yeah, sure. But like, just try some stuff. Go out there, experiment. You know, I think we just need to let go of the construct of like, oh, you need to do this for X amount of time, you need to do this. Like, yeah, it pays to get really good at the thing, but also that can be subjective too. But in terms of like trying things, go for it. Become a mad scientist. Turn your life into one big experiment, and then pass on what you learn. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way to live life. I think the world would be such a more beautiful place because of that. And if we can do that, void of judgment. You know, something I was going to add to your awareness piece. I know we've dug deep on awareness here, but like open awareness, you go one step further. Loving awareness. You know, what's love? You know, unconditional. What's unconditional? You know, my definition of love is unconditional love. What does unconditional mean? We love all things. So loving awareness is the awareness of all things. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. It relates to open really, really well. So yeah.
Yeah, man. That's beautiful. I think we've definitely solved some of the world's problems today. But yeah, I think action really, like directed action with some awareness is really the key to changing people's lives. You know, like life isn't going to change by itself. Like, you know, change requires change. Like, we need to do something in order to receive something. Like, nothing, one day, you know, $1 million in a briefcase isn't just going to come knocking on your door, like, or freedom isn't going to just come and find you. Like, you have to find it. I think that we've also been bred to believe that like we're all entitled to it someday if we just keep trying hard and like plodding along, that like eventually we're entitled to just having this amazing life. Well, I got some news for you. It doesn't work like that. You got to go and find it yourself.
And you know, our deservedness and our freedom was already given to us when we were born. You know, we were born here free. That's how the universe drops us here. But us humans have a funny way of deforming that, right? And that's why I look at everything we do. Everything we do outside of nature, when we reduce it down to like mono versions of things, they are all made up. Everything. Like, when we distill everything down so much, because that's what we do as humans. We distill everything down to like a singular form, and then we go create something different with it, which is fine. But it's oftentimes things that we don't find in nature. And that, to me, I think is just a made-up world, that we've gamified the world. So in that case, go do whatever you want. It's like we need to, therein we've put ourselves in jail, in a sense. We've put ourselves in this systematic jail. So what we're talking about is the awareness and the remembering and the noticing of, what was it like outside of this, you know, made up place that we created? And one of our ways to get out of that is to live a life of purpose, to realize, to have awareness, and to make enough freedom tokens in our life, aka money, to get us out of that system as well.
Yeah, that's true. So true. I mean, look, we can, like, one of the easiest ways to like live life from that place is by having more money as well. Like, when we have some more money, we can open our awareness further, because we're not, again, in going back to the farming analogy, we're not hungry then. Like, the worst time to action any of this stuff is when you're fucked. Because when you're fucked, you're doing things to get yourself unfucked. You're not doing stuff to get yourself expanded into like new areas of the world and of life. And, pick up what people are putting down, man. Like, if you're listening to this, like, just pick up what people are putting down. Like, follow people like Hormozy. Follow people like, Paul Check. Follow people, like, broaden your perspective, broaden, like, pick, like, look at the wheel of life and pick one person from every area and just have that as what you're following on Instagram. Like, you don't need to see another skin fade. You don't need to see another, like, mullet. Like, you don't need to see these things. That's keeping you contracted in your current awareness. Open yourself up to holistic practices. Open yourself up to, follow someone that has something to do with business and finance. Follow Alex Hormozy. Follow Stephen Bartlett. Follow these people who are going to expand your worldview and your mind and your awareness. And sooner or later, you'll realize that there's a key couple of ingredients in all of what they do, and it is action.
Yeah. And, right now, we've never needed more people to be aware to help humanity. We haven't needed this in a long time. It's all coming to a head. And right now, a lot of people, even the people that say they care, are walking around with the blinkers on. The same people that say they care about the like environmental stuff going on in the world will be the same people head to toe in Louis Vuitton, the same people still going to all these parties, same people still, thinking it's so important that all this hair stuff happens, and this is how it is and this is how it is. Guys, your actions don't meet your words, and I don't care what anybody says. That is a lot of the world. It's a lot of the world. Stats show that only 30% of people actually think from a place of awareness. It's not many people, and it's showing that the proof is in the pudding. The world is a direct reflection of that. And when I say the world, I don't mean the planet itself. The planet's going to be fine. It's us we've got to worry about. And I always think about that. What are we doing that best serves us as a people? Not people are very into self-worship. Like, this matters because it's a bias. Like, anything outside of nature and survival doesn't matter on the grand scheme. Not at this point when humanity needs us right now. Humanity needs us. So you're saying that matters more than what's going to save our species? But who knows? Why do we even need to save our species? I was listening to Zach Bush talk about this. He was like, I'm not even so worried about saving my species before. He's like, I'm more interested in what happens after. He was like, I'm very interested to know what happens after that. He's like, the planet's going to be fine. It's us that's going to miss out. So I think about that in everything we do. More skin fades is not going to solve humanity's issues. It's just not. And more self-worship is going to end us faster.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's dark. It's sad
there's
and
two
dark,
ways.
but like, it's just the reality of it. You ask any expert and they're like, we're on the precipice. Like, we are a fraction away from things going really south. Like, I think we only have, is it something like 60 more harvests left of topsoil? That's all we've got left in the Western world. That's not much. We've gone from having, I think they were saying at one point they've recorded 15 feet of topsoil. Now we're down to like a couple inches. Like, it's ridiculous. We don't have much left. What do you want to do, guys? Is the skin fade still important? It's a distraction from the awareness.
Well, going back to what you were saying there about, people actually living through their values is another way of saying that, or what they say they value at least. It's two different things. 30% of people are leading themselves and critically thinking, and 70% of people are being led by other people, even though they're not. They don't, objectively think it, but on a subjective or subconscious level. On a conscious level, they don't think they're being led by other people, but on a subconscious level, they actually are being led by everyone and everything around them. So I would just, off the back of this podcast, just have a little reflection moment of, where am I currently sitting at? Like, what's going on in my life? Like, am I moving towards what it is that I want? Like, do I have awareness to everything in my environment? Quite often the moment that you think you do is when you actually don't. The person who thinks that they're the most woke and most aware is actually probably one of the least aware people that exists. Like, it's always good to be surrounding yourself with people that can continue to help you grow, continue to expand your mind. You know, the day that you think you're done, you are done. You're done for.
And it's just so important to stay open and just have thesis on things. Just have a theory on things, because it'll allow you to keep asking questions, stay curious, and allow things to move and evolve. Because the moment you get dogmatic, the moment you fall into convictions, like you say, that's the day you think you're done. That's the day you think you've worked it out. That is when inaction sets in. That will directly correlate to inaction, because you think there's nothing to change, and ultimately that will hold you back. And we're seeing that now, even in the way like AI is moving. Those that are convicted that it's bad and a load of shit, they're going to get left behind. Why? Because inaction, that's the cost of their inaction, is getting left behind.
And one of the biggest things that stops people taking action is belief. But the irony of that is that we have to take action to instill that belief, because with action comes evidence, and the only thing that really builds beliefs is new evidence. And, you know, like I was saying earlier in the podcast, patterns aren't going to break themselves, guys. Like, stop listening to other people's voices, stop listening to their patterns, stop listening to their awareness, because you can listen to it. I wouldn't say stop listening to it, keep listening to it, but keep putting it through your own filter and asking yourself, does this make sense? Does this make sense for me? Does this make sense for the decisions that I want to make today that are going to move me closer to where I want to be in 3 to 5 years' time?
And that the belief, you know, that could be a whole podcast in itself. You know, the energetics behind actually doing the things that you want to do in your life. But belief, I think, relates very closely to trust. It's like most people don't believe they could do the thing. One, because they don't trust themselves to do the thing. Like, to take action, a lot of people don't trust that they can take the action it's going to require to actually do the thing. 2 reasons that can happen. Why? Because in their developed life, they might not have the evidence that they can do things yet. And the other place it could have come from was when you were a kid. If you never got the conditioning that you can trust yourself to do hard things and challenging things and put yourself in a great place in life when you were young, you're going to have to go and find it in your developed life. And the only way to do that and to develop life is just to get started, to start doing things, to start experimenting, start taking action, start taking some calculated risks, because that, on the other side of that, could be a life you don't even know you could have. And it sure as hell beats the certain misery that is the cost of inaction.
Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. Hallelujah. But yeah, man, I think that was very, very powerful. And yeah, sometimes it's just about cultivating that self-trust. Trust that we can do the things that we say we want to. Or, you know, a lot of the time people get scared of, saying, for example, making an investment in something, but it's really a self-worth issue. It comes back to like the belief that, can I follow through, and can I then hold the fact that I've made this commitment? Because the evidence that they have so far in their lives is that they can't. So now it's time to change that evidence, and the only way you can change the evidence is by changing your behaviors, changing your actions, changing your patterns, like breaking the patterns. And the easiest way to do it is to surround yourself by people who have done that, because then it becomes real. You then see it. And what we know about belief is you have to see something in order to believe it.
Yeah, and to get new beliefs, 100%, because a lot of our beliefs are inherited, right? And like, no one's ever seen God, but loads of people believe it. You know, it's like because most people inherit that's indoctrinated from when they're young, right?
But I have something to say on that. But the people who do believe it see God every day.
Yeah, true.
you know, and
depends
that's
what you think
depends
of
what
it is, right?
Yeah, what you're thinking. Like, you know, when the sun shines on my face earlier during the podcast, I was like, that in that moment is me seeing God,
Seeing
you know?
a version of it, yeah.
When I see numbers come up somewhere, or I see it as a sign, but my awareness could also see it as not God. So it's the same thing with other things, business opportunities, you know, open awareness, loving awareness, or closed off, fixed mindset, living in convictions.
It's powerful. And, you know, I have the utmost compassion and empathy for all of this stuff because, you know, we're often not taught this when we're younger. We're often not shown these opportunities. And, you know, I just think back to what are we really doing this for? We've been talking about the hair industry. We're known for our work in the hair industry, but a lot of our work crosses over into all businesses. But, you know, what are we using it for? You know, are we using it to better humanity or not? Are we using it for the great good of humanity or not? And, you know, oftentimes I challenge that. You know, I question it. It's very close, but I definitely question it. Yeah, and I think if you want to change that, get around decision makers, get around action takers, get around people that have done it, especially people that are 5 to 10 times ahead of where you are. You're sure as hell get your ass in gear. Environment is everything, for sure.
And it doesn't matter who it is. Like, that's the thing. It could be anybody. But I think one key ingredient in that is surrounding yourself in an environment that is free of judgment. Because the most growth happens in the environment that's free of judgment. Because what stops most people taking the action to do something is the fear of being judged for not being good enough, or not knowing enough, or not having enough, or not knowing the answers. Well, nobody knows the fucking answers. All you got to do is look around at, like, what's happening. Like, what even is this? What's going on? Who the fuck knows the answers? We're all making it up, even at the highest levels. It's all just based on the information that we know from the past. We're making up what is happening in the future. Nobody knows what's going on. So the earlier you free yourself of the shackles of judgment, and put yourself in an environment where people won't judge you, that's when you'll see the most growth.
And I love that. And that's such a beautiful way to kind of round it out. It's like, you know, that fear of being judged is a fear of being seen, you know, and if no one ever sees, that's one of man's greatest, and when I say man, I mean every living thing on the planet. It's like, it's one of our great downfalls, is never being seen exactly how we are, all of our good, all of our bad. And Zach Bush puts it beautifully. He says, once a human can see another human, that will send a vibration through the universe so powerful that it will change the energy of the universe forever. Humans don't see each other right now. We do not see each other. And once we can do that, we change everything. But we have to lose the judgment.
We fear not being seen because we're afraid of not being loved. Because we're afraid that we're not good enough. And the only thing that's going to change that is his new behaviors, new evidence, building new beliefs, taking new actions. It's the only thing. Whatever that looks like for you. So, yeah, that was beautiful. I think that's enough gospel for the team today. So, if that doesn't lead to an unlimited life, if all of that doesn't lead to an unlimited life, I don't know what does.
The profound sound of the Unlimited podcast.
Yeah, love it. Well, we'll be back next week because I'm bursting for a piss.
God's calling.
God's calling me to empty the tank.
Like,
so
you've had enough.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in as always.
Share this with a friend who needs to hear it. That's the call to action this weekend.
That's your first piece of action.
Share this with a friend who you feel could benefit from this. Like, spread the good word. That's all we ask.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.